Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 391 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited that you are here and excited that we get to talk to my guest today. He is someone who has been building community for 10 years with his work at District Running Collective as the co-founder. He started it as an alternative to meeting people at networking events and happy hours, and it is now a powerful vehicle for promoting wellness, culture, and community. I loved hearing about District Running Collective and what Matt Green has done there. But also, Matt is so many more things than a community builder. He is an artist. He's a graphic designer. He also has a 9-to-5 job. He's an entrepreneur. He's a motorcycle enthusiast. And he's a DJ. Talk about having passions and hobbies there. What we talked about today is how to weave those things that you care about, those passions that you have, into your life in a way that makes sense for you. We talked about various different ways of speaking to your heart, of trusting in your heart, of following your journey, no matter how different it is from everyone else's, and really just bringing in all the elements of you to make one beautiful, unique you. So I am really excited for this conversation with Matt. I think you're going to really enjoy it too. Let's take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, then we'll be right to this episode with Matt Green. Thank you to Precision for your support of me and the Running for Real podcast. I hoped I would be running lots of ultras this year. That is not my reality. I am having surgery, and that's going to mean ultras are definitely not something I'm going to be doing, at least in the first half of the year. But one of the beautiful things about this is that it does give me the opportunity to really train and practice my stomach, because one of the biggest things for us as runners is getting our fueling correctly. And if, by the way, you don't know how much fuel you should be taking, how much hydration, electrolytes you should be taking, Precision has a free fuel and electrolyte or fuel and hydration planner. It's free. You don't have to use Precision stuff, but you should definitely go check out the links in the show notes to go get yourself that planner, use it, make the most of it. You can also get a free consultation with the Precision team. No strings attached. Just go take opportunity of that. That is in the show notes. But today I want to talk about practicing. So one of the biggest things is practicing your gel and nutrition. And for me, that's something I was never particularly good at when I was running at my best. And I know I left a lot of time on the table by not doing that. So that's where while I've been biking, I'm up to 34 miles, hoping to get to 50 before I go in for my surgery. With that, I've been able to test out the gels. The PF30 gels has 30 grams of carb. They go down easily. You don't get flavor fatigue. They are just enjoyable to take down, even not just for a gel, just in general. And I definitely encourage you to go check them out. If you use code TINASENTME at precisionhydration.com, you can get yourself 15% off. That is code TINASENTME. Go check out their gels, go check out their chews, their electrolytes. They will take care of you, and I'm excited to hear what you think. Go check it out. Matt, I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited that you are here. We have I've had a few hiccups of where we haven't been able to record this with my child, who is sick again. Oh no! My 3-year-old seems to not want you and I to talk. But we went ahead anyway, and so we're making it work. And I'm glad that we're going to be able to have this conversation. And in the research, I don't really like the word research. It makes it sound very like cold. But in reading up on you, learning about you, stalking on you, creeping on you, if you want to call it that.
I think research works better.
Yeah, maybe in that sense, research works better. I actually, a few weeks ago, funny side story, I met a woman at a conference, and she came up. Someone introduced us, a mutual friend, and he said, "Oh, I'd like to introduce you to Bex." And I said, "Oh, I know you. I was just stalking you a few days ago." And she was like, "I was just stalking you a few days ago." And it was like, wow, this is a really weird time we live in when that, I mean, not many people, I feel like I'm one of very few who would say I've been stalking you. But it was just a really funny interaction because it was such a, like, I said that and then she said it back. And then, you know, she didn't need that mutual friend because I'd already been like, creeping on her, like, "Ooh, who is this woman?" And I want to know her. And so, yeah, I don't tend to say I'm stalking and creeping on someone, but that's definitely worse than researching. So I shouldn't use that too much. Okay, so with you, there is so many things we could talk about, and you are the perfect example of a guest that I really love to dig into and get to know, because you really, from what I see, and I'd love to start by you confirming or denying this, you seem like you don't like fitting into being put into boxes of like, I am this or I am that, but also that you see a way of many passions blending together to make this beautiful mix of who you are. Not so much the way that we're often told is like, if you're a runner, then that's what you do. You don't have any other things on the side. You focus on one thing at a time. So yeah, thoughts on that as a whole?
I would say that's absolutely correct. I like to consider myself as like a multi-hyphenate. And I have a lot of passions, a lot of things that I'm interested in. I do like to disrupt in a lot of different ways, as far as like my experience as being, you know, a Black male in America. So, you know, I try to put everything that I do and connect the dots and share my story to see if there's other people that are like me that exist or that have the similar interests that I have. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not going and fitting in anybody's box. And I do enjoy doing a lot of things. I have a lot of hobbies that end up turning into careers or business ventures and things like that. So, you know, everything you said is completely true.
Is that paintbrushes I can see over your shoulder? Is that a load of paintbrushes? It
is. So I'm in my office right now, and I recently had got back into painting.
I can see some of your work behind you.
Yeah, some of my stuff is back here. I got some stuff in the background, a piece I'm working on. But yeah. So it's another. I think everything started. Hobby. Yeah, it started from, you know, everything started from an art background.
I love that.
From when I was younger into college and into design. So, but definitely a strong foundation in art.
Yeah, we're going to go into the painting in a little bit and what that means to you. And I noticed you seem to have the IKEA tray that I have, and it feels like everyone in the world has that IKEA thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong.
I got everywhere.
I got a pegboard up here with like all types of stuff organized. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's like IKEA or Amazon, and it gets the job done.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, you said about being interested in many things, having different passions, and trying to seek out other people who if people exist. I haven't formulated this question because it came up while you were speaking, but my first part of the question is, have you found those people? And my follow-up question to that is, do you think all of us have the potential to be that person? Some of us may just not know how to access that.
I would say, And I think I might rephrase it or reframe it.
Okay.
So a lot of times interest that like, you know, I'm in the plants, I'm in the motorcycles, I'm into running, DJing, all the things like that. And I think I have a very like unique experience. And when getting involved in some of these niche or subculture kind of communities, there's like already like this, like, I don't know. I would say like the type of person or demographic that may be in it. And I don't typically see a lot of Black people. And, you know, depending on what it is, like for motorcycles, you know, I got into cafe racers and I didn't really see a big.
What is that?
So they're like, it's like old school motorcycles that pretty much get stripped down, and like 1980s, 1970s motorcycles that were like really big and clunky, but there's like a group of people. It's like a, you know, a community that is called cafe racers, where they break down these motorcycles and turn them into very like minimal performance machines. And getting into that community, one of my friends, he was into motorcycles. Like, man, that stuff looks so cool. I really want to try and get into that. I've always wanted to, it just looks really dope. But I didn't see a lot of people in it that looked like me. And while I started taking pictures and kind of sharing my process of like learning how to ride, building and breaking down a motorcycle at the same time, it caught the attention of, I would say, some people in that community. In particular, there was a guy, I forgot where he was from, but he had a magazine and it featured a lot of Black and brown people. And because he saw what I was posting, he reached out and he was like, I love the feature in the magazine. This is like within my first year of joining that, you know, really getting involved in cafe racers. And he was like, I want to feature you because you bring a different take to what is available, or what people see, you know, as a designer, as an artist, as a runner, and now as like a motorcycle enthusiast. So he featured me, my work, and everything in his magazine as like a person of color that's out, you know, making strides in this, you know, arena. So with that, I would say, you know, I think I do get into like these niche communities and I try to find space, and I do find people that are like me, because essentially it's like I'm either joining something that was already created, similar to like running it. I think DRC is a great example of a community where run crews existed. You know, the guys from Bridge Runners and folks in New York, how run crews came into existence. I saw that and I was like, I really want to be a part of that, but we don't have that here in DC. And that was something that kind of helped spark, you know, seeing what the movement was and wanting to join it and bringing something to the table. And then at the same time, it was like creating a new community here in DC, because I think for everything for me is like DC is home. I'm a native Washingtonian, and when I don't see a lot of things, I tend to create it, because I'm like, this would be really dope. Why not? If not me, then who? You know, it's a lot of times it's like how I approach. I don't just complain about, oh no, this doesn't exist. I'll be the person that's like, oh, this is dope, I'm about to do it.
Where does that come from? Like, were either of your parents that way, or where does that part of you come from that you know, that exactly what you said, that if not me, then who approach?
I would say both of my parents are, you know, are go-getters in their own way. My dad is, you know, he's in home improvement and construction. They're both retired, but growing up, you know, going to work with him to make a couple of dollars and fixing, you know, either painting or him doing some type of home improvement for a client during the weekends was ways that me and my brother were able to make a little bit of money on the side if we wanted some shoes or whatever we wanted, because they weren't just going to say, hey, oh, I want this. They were like, no, you can work for this. We give you some money and you can figure it out. And then my mom she's very creative as far as like painting and crafts. She had a business, or has a business since I was little, where she was making fine art and Black art for, you know, dolls, and makes dolls and makes clothing and just all of the above. And so that entrepreneurial spirit was something that I saw from a young age. And it was always like, you know, if it was, you know, growing up, I think like Looney Tunes jackets were like a big thing. And we didn't have like the most money, or they weren't going to pay for stuff that was like so pricey that all the other kids had, where it was like one of those things where we can make it. And like I would, you know, put cartoons on T-shirts or jean jackets and things like that, because, you know, we didn't have they didn't, you know, they didn't want to use the, you know, that income that they were making to, you know, pay for these kind of like, you know, smaller things that we could make on our own. So I think that was pretty much, you know, some of the things that helped spark that fire of like doing things that, you know, I saw that that didn't exist or that I didn't have access to.
And you had to work to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then did that also apply to the kind of walking into spaces when you were talking about all these different hobbies and interests that you have, including running and including starting District Running Collective, which was started 10 years ago, by the way, for listeners. That takes a toll of having to always be, you said you did find people, but I'm assuming within those situations, there's been a lot of situations where you were the only and you were the, you said about the magazine, but I would imagine at times, and I don't know if the magazine was or wasn't, but there was times where it was like tokenism and just selecting you to make themselves look like I'm not necessarily saying the magazine, but at some point, just selecting you to like make it look like it was more diverse than it was, that space. How does that not become emotionally exhausting of having to continually walk into those spaces? Or was that something, again, your parents did and became normal for you?
Well, I mean, I think depending on the space there's different experiences. I can speak for running. Primarily, I could say creating DRC ended up being like an outlet for people of, Black and brown folks, people coming from a HBCU background. That's, where DRC, I went to North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, have a really big HBCU network. And those were the folks that essentially, because they were my community and my network, were the people that were coming out to DRC originally. And they're just like folks that, friends from high school and things like that. But it was one of those things where I didn't see when DRC was started. Like, there were groups that were Black that had running communities. So don't get me wrong. We weren't the first to make this thing exist. But to do it in the way to where it's like, it feels like the way for something that I would want to join, where the cool factor was there. It had, different pieces that made it exciting for me and for who it was talking to. That was like the important thing for me. And I think with that, it's like, and I'm trying to answer your question. It's a pretty loaded question, but I'm trying to like narrow it down. But it was like, creating a community, like, if you build it, they will come is a saying that, I believe in. And it's like, also like, if you build it and put it in the spaces where the people are at that you want to attract, then you'll get those people to come out as well. And that's what we did. And that's why the community looked the way that it looks. Cause, we were going into the community or the spaces of, my friends that were business owners or promoters, or, we would go to those spots that we frequented. So it was like the folks that were at those bars or restaurants or activities with them, like, oh, Matt, you about to do this? I'm definitely pull up. I don't know how to run a 5K, but, I'm a support. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of like I knew there was a need for it, essentially. And the second part of your question about like the tokenism, about how people may seek out a diverse, focal point, which, DRC was for a long time and still is. And how do we, me and my team navigate those spaces? It's just being authentic and staying true to like our why and why we're doing what we're doing. And then being honest of, knowing our value and what we can bring to the table is important. And that's across the board for anything, whether it's running, whether it's DJing, art, design, or whatever. It's like, I know what we're capable of doing. I know the value that we bring to the table, and making sure like we say no to the things that don't make sense, that don't align, and being adamant about it. And even like, calling out. I'm very much so a believer in calling out the BS. I'm not trying to cuss on here. I'm trying to keep it family friendly, but
you're good.
Yeah, it's like, we're not about the bullshit, So it's like, we had a long-term partnership with Under Armour and had to deal with some unique situations where we kind of, I guess we'll say like, we had to speak for the brand in our space or answer for what the brand did in our space, which put us in an uncomfortable position a lot of times. And that was things that we took to them and say, hey, this is happening. This is what we got to say. Like, what are y'all going to do about it? And it was like really kind of like changing that narrative to make sure like we were doing what was right for our community and for our people, and that our vision and our message was right. You know, and having that conversation, I think everything is just like, let's have an honest conversation about it. And then even in some of the running spaces that are, you know, very, you know, dominated, you know, I would say white dominated, because it is a very white dominated sport. You know, coming to the table to make sure it's like, okay, where is a race, and, you know, pictures get taken, and the next thing you know is like that organization starts speaking to being diverse, and then next thing you know, you see DRC right plastered on the on their Instagram page or in their marketing material, and it's just like, you know, I understand, you know, we bring a certain energy, and it's exciting, it's disruptive, and we look a certain way, but, you know, we make sure we try to check those people when we do have a conversation with them. You know, so I would say, you know, it's just trying to come to the table and being authentic is important, and making sure we stress the things that we feel need to be said.
Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should at least be simple. That's why for the last 5 years, I've been drinking AG1 every day. No exceptions, 1 scoop mixed in water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel good. I feel energized. I can take on the day knowing no matter what happens, no matter what my food intake looks like, I have taken care of myself. That's because each serving of AG1 delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more. It's a powerfully healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. I know with AG1, I'm getting this high quality nutrition. Every batch goes through this rigorous testing process, so you know it's safe. Their ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrient density. If there's one product I had to recommend to elevate your health, it's AG1. And that's why I've partnered with them for so long. So if you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. So what would be your advice to someone, as you did do this 10 years ago, you've seen this evolution that is kind of happening throughout the running space, the rise of, you know, what you, although not the first, have done as part of with DRC, as among others, to bring this kind of crew culture that's come through into the running space. For someone who's maybe at the beginning of their building, you know, a group within their city, they're in the early stages and brands are maybe approaching them or offering to do things with them, or they're getting opportunities that they feel are, you know, I can't turn this down. What if I turn this down? But it feels, there's something about it that doesn't feel quite right. What would you say in that situation to those people?
I honestly, I think, folks operate in silos so much, and people think, you know, folks think that we are gatekeeping information. So my first thing would be to say, reach out to the people that are doing the things that you respect or you want to be like. I have mentors and people that I reach out to when, you know, something may be confusing or I don't know how it works. So it's like definitely using that network and asking questions. You know, having to sit down with somebody and saying, hey, can you, you know, do you have a moment to grab some coffee if they're like a brand marketer for a brand, to get a better understanding for what the thought is behind some of the things that they're doing. And then reaching out to people like me or, you know, Lance and Joe in Detroit, or Sid in Boston. I reach out to Charlie Dark in London a lot. It's information everywhere, and folks have unique experiences and have been in those same situations. So the first thing I would say is like, reach out to the people that have done it and see how they did it. And then add that to, you don't have to replicate exactly what they're doing. or how they responded, but it's just good to have a basis to start with of like, all right, this is what they did. I have a better understanding of how we should show up. And they'll big you up and say, you know what? Know your value is like the biggest thing. And it's easier said than done. It's like, you know, even myself always, you know, I'll have a little bit of imposter syndrome every now and then where it's like, is this right? Am I doing the right thing? You know, are we, you know, where it's like that questioning comes into place. But ultimately, you know, if you have enough foundation of like, you know, this is what is important for us. And then if they start saying, well, we can't do this and can't do that, then no, say no. Yeah. And then, you know, negotiate. And if it makes sense, cool. If it doesn't, there's plenty of space for, you know, there's plenty of brands. There's plenty of people that are out here trying to work together. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how I would navigate that. Is, you know, we got to communicate with one another.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a good point there that isn't talked about very much, which is when a brand offers something or reaches out about something, you don't have to accept it straight off. You can say, well, how about this? Or I really think I would need this. Because while it feels like brands have all the power, at the end of the day, especially if they've reached out to you for a reason. They want you. And yes, of course, there's always a chance where they'll be like, fine, I'll go on to the next person who will say yes for a pair of shoes. But they also might say, you know, you at least are saying, like you said, can we have a conversation about this? And that gives you more opportunity to share about your value and what you bring and show them your energy, what you bring to the table. And if they aren't up for that situation, if that doesn't help them, then in many ways it's like their loss. Because if they're not willing to put in the time to negotiate or talk to you, or they just want to like snap, fine, we'll go on to the next person, then that's not a brand you want to be associating yourself with anyway.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about the brands. You know, it's about, for me, it's about the community. It's about the people that show up, that I interact with, that are running the races, that sign up to run these crazy distances. It's about them. And it just happens that we have to have some sort of gear to wear while we do it. And it's like, why not make it make sense? And we work with a brand that aligns. But at the end of the day, if you're starting it just so you can get brand support, you really aren't doing it for the right reason.
Yep. No, good shout. Okay, so then with bringing these passions of yours in together, we started to talk about this at the beginning, but like, how do you feel having various elements of yourself, various things that catch your interest, benefits you over this focusing on one thing? You know, for you, for example, I'm starting DRC. I want to exclusively focus on this. This is my hobby. Box checked. Why keep many things going at the same time? Or why explore different things at the same time?
I mean, to me, the access to different opportunities or different doors will open up. You know, it's kind of just like running. You know, if you're training for a marathon, and if you're only running your long distance, you know, the long miles, but you're not running during the week, you're not doing cross training, you're not stretching, it's like, then you become like, you're not the best, you know, you're not taking advantage of being like the best runner that you can be. And I think that kind of applies to like how I look at having these different passions and how they align. So I have my running community. I got into DJing. I still have that running community that wants to support me and the things that I'm doing. So when I DJ, they come out and then they become part of my DJing community, and you blend those circles. So now it's like, I come to the table with a huge, you know, network of folks that will support me when I'm out DJing, not only because it's just me, but I'm actually pretty good. Right. And then the same thing with DJing. It's like, you find those avenues where it's like, there's cross sections where those two communities or those two industries can meet. where music and fitness cross path, right? So now it's like I'm not just speaking to one siloed, in network or just not speaking to one person. Now I'm speaking to multiple people, because at the end of the day, for me, it's like I'm trying to impact as many people as I can while I'm on Earth. I think my why of why I do a lot of things is like I want to make a difference. I want to leave a legacy of like, when it comes to that final day, I can like, well, I lived and I impacted a lot of people that, I affected the world in some capacity. It's very general, it's very broad, but, doing those different things is like, it allows me access to more people, whether they want to run or whether they want to listen to music, whatever the case may be. Is like, it's making myself a very like more well-rounded, versed kind of a person. And I think with design meets running in a lot of ways with apparel and making things look cool for like marketing related, or just having things that people are proud to wear to say that, they can be a part of. And that's where branding comes in. In art, you get into culture. So you bring in, whether you're running by different murals and giving background to those things, like there's cross sectors where everything makes sense. And my goal is to make sure that I can pinpoint those places where they make sense and introduce people to new experiences, where it's not just, I'm gonna run down this, on the trail. And for us, it's like Rock Creek Park and not explore the city. It's like, I want to show people it's like street running is like the way to go. Because if you go somewhere new, the first thing I do when I'm in a different country or a different city is like, I'll go for a run to explore. And I could find like a new, I'll find record shops, I'll find galleries, I'll find coffee shops that when I go back and I'm playing my day out, now I can like, oh, well, I saw this thing over here. This was really dope. Or I saw this, mural while I was out. I want to take a picture about that. When I got my fit, going, I want to get a crazy Instagram picture. It's just like, seeing the world, by way of your feet is just an amazing way to go about it.
For sure. I love that. And I love what you were saying about, how your DJing circle can overlap with your running community, and they both work well together. They support one another. I really think there's this beautiful exploration that's going on between things that were typically like seen as one way that is changing. Like yesterday, I saw an Instagram reel of a guy who was a classically trained pianist, and he was playing hip hop on the piano, and it was, I couldn't stop watching it. I was like, wow, like this is, it was just, it's not something that most people would put together, like hip hop and classically trained pianist.
Right.
But these things are happening now, and people are seeing that, it doesn't have to be like, okay, the people that want to go to, hear a DJ and the people that want to run are two completely different ends of the spectrum in terms of like their lifestyles, so they don't ever interact, but you can bring them together. And I really love that you're encouraging that in people. One thing I want to ask related to that is, you said, you DJ, you started DJing and you realized you were pretty good at it. You also started this, run crew collective immediately. Well, not immediately, but what from the outside might look like a very quick success. Although we know it doesn't work that way. And then same with your art. I can see your art behind you. For someone who's thinking, okay, but clearly Matt has talents. He's good at these things. He's a creative person. And my gut says my drawing skills I'm probably in the bottom 10%. And so I'm going to use myself as an example, but like if I said, if I'm going to go try and paint, or draw, I'm going to just throw the paper at the wall because I'm going to get too annoyed. What would you say to someone who says, well, I don't have any of these talents? It's easy for you to say that and try all these things when you have these skills, but I don't.
So another thing that I subscribe to is like, you got to play to your strengths. I think And then you bring on people that are capable of doing the things that you aren't. I have a huge team of folks that have been involved with DRC and a success to get it to where it's gotten today, that do things that I just can't do. Like I'm not a writer, you know, I'm not a copy editor. I'm not a lot of things. Logistics is not my forte. I'm a creative, but it's like I bring people on that can help and assist in those roles that to do the things that I'm not capable of doing. But ultimately it's like, if you have the vision and the passion behind it and you can speak to it to inspire folks that want to help and, you know, want to contribute, then it's like, you got to give them the space to do it and empower them to do it and not try to take all the shine because, you know, you're the face of whatever the case may be. So you really got to share, you know, the spotlight to make sure folks are, you know, who are putting in the work can, you know, get some type of benefit from it as well. So if whatever you may be, you know, writer, like you have this podcast, you know, and your voice and how you can storytell and narrate and interview is a superpower. You know what I'm saying? So like that's your superpower for something that I might not be as well versed in.
Yes.
And how you can curate stories. And then you might just have to bring on a designer, you know, someone like me to be able to communicate that vision. And once you're able to do that, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for supporting Running for Real in general. Tracksmith has done so much to allow us to really chase after our dreams, make big changes. Those of you who have thanked me for the work that I have done, a lot of that is because of the support Tracksmith has given me. I am so appreciative of them. And beyond supporting me, they also want to support you. Have you heard about Tracksmith's PR bonus? I could tell you today about the Brighton base long sleeve that is my favorite, the Session Speed shorts, the Lane 5 shorts. I could tell you about any of those things, how they're long lasting, they're durable, they are beautifully made, comfortable. I literally couldn't pick a single thing wrong with any of them, but I want to talk to you about this PR bonus. So Tracksmith believes that chasing a personal best is both core to the amateur spirit and what makes it meaningful. And yes, pros have their efforts rewarded, acknowledged. The focus is very much on them. But they want to change that. If you, and I'm talking to you listening to this right now, if you set a PR or a PB between January 1st and April 30th in any standard distance run or track and field, from the 100 to the marathon, the triple jump, the shot put, anything else, you can earn a $100 credit towards your next Tracksmith purchase. $100 credit. So I encourage you, if you are feeling like you want to chase down a goal, you can submit your PR. They'll give you a $100 credit to go get yourself something from Tracksmith. Has to be done in 2024. And you can only use it once. But I definitely encourage you to go check it out. You can go to tracksmith.com/Tina. You will see a heading there that says PR bonus where you can learn about that. Also check out the other amazing items that they have to offer. As I said, these are long-lasting, durable items, and that's that is the number one thing you can do as a consumer is buy quality, long-lasting items when you need to purchase something and use it for a long time. You will be able to do that with Tracksmith. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring Running for Real, for supporting me, and go to tracksmith.com/Tina. Yeah, and I think everyone listening probably has some things. If you're having a hard time thinking about what those things could be, what makes you excited to think about doing it? Like for me, thinking about drawing does not get me excited. Or the time does not pass quickly. But to others, as you said, we all have different things. You and I may have different things that we are good at or skilled at or enjoy, and that's okay. And again, I want to remind people of like the pianist example that I just gave an example. Maybe you play the piano, but you find it boring. And then I just mentioned to you about that hip hop and you're like, well, hip hop's not really my thing, but like maybe there's some other kind of music that really interests you and you could somehow blend the two of those. And I want to give an example. So when you use the word writer, like I do consider myself a writer. Like I had my book come out, but I also feel like I have a unique writing style that does speak to people. But I remember specifically when I first really started getting to know Knox Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
And probably about 6 months before we hosted the podcast together, I got to know Knox, and he introduced himself as a writer. And then I remember the moment when Knox followed me on Instagram, and I thought, and then the next thing I wrote, I felt very subconscious because I thought, well, Knox is a real writer. I'm just like word vomiting all over the page. And he is like poetic and like just has this way with words. But then it took me a little while to realize like there's different versions of any word as well. And so Knox and I can both be in the category of writer, even though our writing styles could not be further apart. And so I think I want to challenge people listening to that as well. Like you might hear, podcast interview style is another good example. Like there are people who are very short, direct, to the point. Their questions are never more than a sentence. Mine are clearly not that, but it's what feels right to you. So to follow what feels good in your heart. Anything you would add to that?
I mean, I completely agree. That imposter syndrome will seep in very quickly. But ultimately, I think there's space for everything. And I think everyone is uniquely important to, if they want to share whatever that they have, with the world, do it your way. Don't, I think copying something or using something as inspiration are very different. But ultimately, like there's space. I love this book by Austin Kleon called "Still Like an Artist," and it's a short book, but it's something where it's just like he talks about the processes of like nothing is new, and how we're all kind of just like recreating a lot of different things. So, and he has some unique ways of how he shows it, but it's like I think just like how you said, it's like being confident, knowing that you're enough. And you're important and you have the space for it. There's always going to be somebody that you can encourage to like to hear what you have to say or follow you in whatever passion that you're doing.
So related to that, in an article I read about you, you said your non-negotiable is purpose is foundational to everything you touch.
Yes.
That kind of leads on to what we were just talking about there. So explain what you mean by that.
It's pretty much like my why, and I'm not sure which article,
I can't remember which article that one was from. Actually, I should have written that down. I will put it in the show notes so people
I'm sure
can find it.
There's a little more context with it, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's doing something for a reason is important. Like, it's not just out here doing stuff to just do stuff, but having your reason, having your why for why you're doing it to that ultimately gives you the energy to wake up every day to be like, oh, I really want to do this. I'm not making money or, for a lot of the things that I dedicate my time to, and time is our most precious asset. So like at the end of the day, it's like the things that I'm dedicating my time to, I want to make sure that I'm doing it for a reason and it has a purpose, and ultimately that it impacts people in a certain type of way that I feel like, this is Matt's vision for how things should be. And, that's what kind of keeps me going at the end of the day.
Yeah. And you've very much shown that with what you've built at DRC of, like we said, this is 10 years ago you started this. Do you feel like your purpose with DRC, your why, has changed over that 10 years?
Absolutely. I mean, because when it started, I didn't even think it was going to be a thing. It was me and, 3 of the other founders, Taylor Blake, Chaz Dawson, and Carlin Meyer. We started it in 2013. So, I mean, I initially didn't even want to start it. I was just coming off of doing I had a clothing brand that I started with some other buddies from college. And we, my friend group was just all just like starting businesses. So this was like our thing. Great network, amazing guys. And, to this day, it's like we're all, still best friends, and we push each other, and everyone's like very successful. But yeah, I didn't want to do it. I was like, I know this is going to fall on me. I was like, y'all are going to disappear. I love them to death, love y'all. But I was just like, man, y'all going to leave me with this, and I have to do it by myself. And lo and behold, that's what happened, but it's okay. But they were super supportive, at the end of the day. And then I ended up being able to create a really big, a team of folks to help push it to what it is and what it's become. Some very instrumental people like Ashley Green, one of the founders of Run Grow, is a big part of it, of getting DRC to where it's, at, and Corey Redden was one of the other folks on leadership. Make sure I give my folks their flowers,
yeah, absolutely.
And now, the torch has been passed to Stephanie, and she's been, helping build it. So it's like team is very important. But to answer your question, I had to give them their roses real quick. To answer your question, I would say I think the mission has always been the same. It's, we wanted to change the way that people looked at running. We wanted to make running cool. And we wanted to get people moving. And our tagline is redefine your impossible. And that's what we preach. And we put it on t-shirts. It's in our space that we run out of. Like, it's like our big kind of like call to action when folks are signing up to do these things that are incredible. It's like redefine your impossible. So ultimately, I didn't know it would be where it is. And it continues to change of how we put things together, how we introduce people to the sport, because it's important. But yeah, like, I mean, to this day, I because it is 10 years and that's a long time. A decade is a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I always kind of fall back on like, the legacy aspect of it. Like, how is this going to live when I'm not be able to invest as much as, I do daily? Its impact on DC, like, what's going to help it stand the test of time? How are we going to get the youth involved, and just things like that? Just thinking about like the longevity piece. So things have kind of shifted from like this day-to-day aspect of it to now, where it's like, oh, we're running and it's cool. But now it's like people have met their significant others because of DRC. There's like DRC babies, and now the babies are like actual like kids now, and they're running races. Like last year we did our first medal ceremony for the kids of our members that ran their first like 1 miler.
That's cool.
So it's just wild. It's like they were in strollers when we started, or they didn't exist when we started. And now it's just, there's this huge community of, DRC families and what that means. And, we want to keep that going because it was special when it started, and it's still special to this day for how the space that is created for folks, that come to DC or that are from DC when they make DC their home, how DRC plays a very important role into that.
For sure. So when you look back on that 10 years, and yes, granted, I know you're not going to accept that you were all of it, but that you were a part of what you've built there, was a part of the evolution of the running community, of what running in DC is. When you reflect back on that 10 years, what are some of the things that come up for you?
It was crazy is last year was the 10-year anniversary, and I really took that time to live in the moment versus like trying to plan. I'm always trying to move to the next thing. I'm always thinking about like, all right, what's next? What's going on? That I very rarely get to sit and reflect on. It's at the top of the year is one thing, but I took the entire year to receive, with the gratitude from different folks, to really see how it impacted different people. And we created spaces to do that. But I think ultimately it is like the family aspect of DRC is, how it's touched people in different ways. Like, folks that may have came out who are OGs, that they came out when DRC started, and they're either still here or they still have a love and appreciation for DRC, but don't come out weekly. But they still spread the word of what we do. So it's just kind of like how those stories develop over time, I think is one of the bigger things that I appreciate. I'm really big on, that narrative of how people speak about, the brand of DRC essentially. And I was keen to that very early when I was preaching, like, yeah, we're running during the week and this is cool, but we need to sign up for half marathons. We need to do these other things. And I could hear that trickle down through my captains and into the members, where then it's like, from what I'm saying, now they're saying those same things verbatim. And then you see when folks run the races for, you know, finding their reason for why they want to run a half marathon, or finding their reason why they want to sign up for a marathon or do a speed project, or again, these incredible things that's crazy as hell. But, you know, it's really hearing how it affects their lives. And I mean, I don't want to, you know, it's kind of deep, but it is what it is. I think, you know, when you're running for 4.5 hours, some people do, you know, 3 hours, but that's not me. For a marathon, it's like you think about like a lot of things and why you're doing this crazy shit. But, you know, I have my experience that's unique to me, and folks have their own experiences that's unique to them. And I think it's just important to like make sure folks are doing it, and they're not just doing this like, oh, I did this marathon and now I'm done forever. It's like, well, I did this marathon, I want to do this other one next. Well, I want to travel here. In the travel part and introducing people to traveling the world has been a big part of like the 10 years of DRC. A lot of folks that never left the country. And then because we had a race in London or Berlin, or wherever we went, folks are getting passports and they're traveling the world and seeing like how massive and, well, how small the world actually is. But these other experiences that are like really dope, and these people that are doing things just like you that are unique to their cities. So yeah, it's a lot that I've reflected on, but the people, it always comes back to the people.
Always, yeah, absolutely. No, totally agree in every sense. I was talking to a friend the other day who lives here in St. Louis, and he's someone who's in the running world, in the running industry, who I only found out recently lives here near me. And I was saying to him about how, for me, a lot of my social time is spent on my travel, like to races, because that's where a lot of my friends are, and I see them. And for me, I go back into almost like a shell of my family life most of the time when I'm here and I'm just with my family. But it really, when you get to explore the world, you get to meet other people, as you said, who are doing similar things to you, or who believe in the same, you know, we're better together. Community is everything. Collaboration is everything. It's just a really special place to be when you surround yourself with that. And I had Ricky Hughes, who's Ricky from St. Louis on social media.
My man, Ricky.
I love him so much. Ricky was talking about how impactful it was when he went to New York, and like he's building an amazing thing here with STL Run Crew, but getting to be in New York. Oh, I think actually he was in the pictures with you. I think you were in the pictures with him. You were with him, right, at that cheer station.
Yeah. I met him. I met him at the cheer station.
Yes. So he was talking about how impactful that moment was of getting to see these people he'd looked up to, you and others, and just how much that opened his eyes of like, wow, like this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, and this is how impactful it can be, and being surrounded by it. So I really think that you're right on there, that connecting with others, traveling, getting to see others doing similar things can be such a powerful experience. Oh,
most definitely. And I listened to that interview. It was a great interview. His energy is just infectious.
Yeah, he's a bundle of energy.
He's got us coming up for to St. Louis for the marathon. So
amazing.
we'll be up there.
Yay.
We're bringing the crew up. So I think what I've been able to learn and experience, running has changed my life, but I would say primarily like being part of this run crew culture, the Bridge the Gap culture, as like, I would say that we're a part of with the crews like Bridge Runners and Run Dem and Pata, like, all those crews that are in that network and attending the different events and all over the world. Like I literally have been everywhere. And if it wasn't for a race, it was just because through the power of running was able to get access to folks, and folks were like, I wouldn't even know, like I went to South Africa and I think Charlie put me in contact with Paul from the 994 and it's a run crew in Cape Town. And I went over there and I met up with them, and it was just like, gave, me and one of my homies that had went with me to South Africa, and just like showed us the city from the lens of someone that lives there. And, from sleeping in couches from people from some of the run crew folks in Amsterdam, like running junkies, like Juan slept on his couch, and some of the folks in Sweden, like Tokyo, everywhere. And it's like, you go to these places, and because of running in that network, was able to have a unique experience that I wouldn't have gotten in anywhere else. And like those connections, and I preach to my community when we invite people to DC, and when folks make these, connections with folks, like, hey, I gotta, it's open your doors up. I've had a lot of people stay in my guest room, sleep on my couch, because I want to show that same love and reciprocate. Sure. It's like, when you come to DC, it's like, you gonna come chill with me. We're gonna have a good time. Whether I'm having like a big cookout or something like that, it's like, you're gonna experience DC from my lens, because I've gone to places and people have treated me and my friends in amazing ways, and just like we're family. So that's been like the one of the biggest things that I love about just like how much it connects the world. That's what Bridge the Gap means. And with the I would say this new surge of Black running crews, I would say is just like I don't know, that we're seeing a lot of those crews connecting in different ways as well. So, definitely, shouting out everybody and making sure we go to each one's cities and things like that. So it's been really dope. Yes, I love that. And I love that St. Louis is next on the list. Come here. I will be excited to have you end of April. And if anyone else wants to come, it is the weekend of the 27th, 28th of April. So we would love to see you. Matt, anything else you want to share with the running community listening to this episode based on what we talked about today, or just in general? I would say, if you took anything from this, is follow your passions, and your passions can turn into a lot of different things. They say jack of all trades, masters of none, but at the end of the day, it's like I've found a way to make those things connect. I've explored different ways of impacting the world, and like we were saying before, it's like find purpose in what you're doing, and it won't feel like work. Yes, love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I will put links to find you, to find DRC. I will put a link to that article that I forgot to say where that your purpose quote came from. That will be in the show notes. And I just appreciate all that you've done. I know you're not the only one. There's been many of you in the community who have been a part of this, but you've built something here that's carved a path for others to follow. So just grateful for you and what you've done. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the work that you're doing, especially in, sharing the space for us to share our voice, and what we got going on is important. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. I really love that conversation with Matt, and I am so thankful for the time he gave us, the encouragement he gave, and I hope you will be able to follow along in your own journey to see what that means for you. You can find links to DRC, to Matt himself, to all the other things we talked about in the show notes by going to runningforreal.com/episode 391. You can also find links to our sponsors there to get that 15% off Precision, to get the 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 K2 from Athletic Greens or AG1,
And you can also get the $15 off your order of $75 or more at Tracksmith. Go check out runningforreal.com/episode 391. I will see you next Friday. Thank you so much for listening.